Hello everyone, as with you always, this is Rich doing another video today on XRP. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day today wherever you are in this great world. We're gonna talk about XRP, and I gotta start with this from the crypto basic. Early retirement with XRP. Role of XRP in financial independence. Now, I always tell you, buy whatever you can afford when it comes to XRP. But every single day, they put out these articles telling you how much retail needs to be holding to get financial freedom. This article says you need 16,800 XRP tokens. Today, an investor could procure these tokens for $32,088 at current prices. I don't know who these articles are geared towards, but most retail investors do not have 30 grand laying around to put all into XRP. They have mortgages, they have car payments, they have rent, they have household bills, they have to buy food, they have to pay for gas to get to work, and at the same time, we're still fighting inflation. But they act like every single retail investor out there should just go out and buy this many tokens. I don't get it, and I think this is why a lot of people think they're too late to XRP. We are still at dirt cheap prices. The institutional adoption is just beginning. If you wait any longer to get positioned into XRP, you're going to be paying much higher prices to buy XRP. Buy whatever you can afford now so you have no regrets later. And ignore all these people telling you there's a specific amount that you need to be holding. Mbridge is a multi-CBDC platform to enable real-time cross-border payments using digital currencies, removing intermediaries and SWIFT. According to Reuters, Mbridge processed over $55 billion in 4K plus transfers, with 95% settled in China's ECNY, used by central banks in China, Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. And Project Mbridge is built off of RippleNet technology. This comes from Smoke. Connection between Ripple, MCBDC Bridge platform, blockchain-based SDR. The MCBDC Bridge platform can be maintained by liquidity pools on Ripple's on-demand liquidity platform, using ISO 222 as the common standard. MCBDC Bridge leverage CBDCs using SDR for settlement. That entire Project Mbridge that the BRICS handed over to China, or the BIS handed over to the BRICS, was built directly off of RippleNet and XRP. The one thing that it cited multiple times was liquidity pools. That's where large amounts of XRP would be stored for long periods of time and being utilized in between the BRICS nations. And yet every single day, people think that for some reason, the BRICS are going to create an entirely new system. Ripple has rails in every single BRICS country already. And this is why 100 billion XRP may not be enough. Take a listen to Jake Claver here.
Why did Ripple create such a large supply? You don't want a token to have to be worth $1 trillion to move value. It needs to be a reasonable price for banks and other institutions to be able to afford it. 100 billion seems like a lot. Like when you look at it, you're like, man, that's a big supply. But in reality, if there are going to be moving value globally for all these different markets and for 8 billion people, on the back end for financial institutions and markets and everything at scale, 100 billion really isn't that much. And then the other thing is like, how many sats or drops do you want to have? So when you break things down fractionally, do you want to have to go to like 1/1,000,000th of something in order to get to a penny? Probably not. That seems extreme. Like quant has like 18 sats or like drops or whatever part of a quant is, decimal places in the code for value. The XRPL has 7. So down to 1/1,000,000th of one XRP or one drop. And you could go down to 1/10 of a drop in the code. That seems pretty reasonable for change. Like if you had to move some change in a transaction, makes sense. I think that's why they minted 100 billion, is because it's a reasonable amount for the fractionalization down to a drop to be able to settle change in a transaction globally if it were adopted in that capacity.
And once we see XRP go live on all of those rails and the banks come out of the testing phase, most people will only be able to afford one drop of one XRP, because it is definitely going to be much higher priced when that happens. You can't move billions upon billions of dollars every few minutes around the world with a $2 or $3 XRP. It just wouldn't work. That's why XRP's price was most likely set by the IMF and the BIS and the World Bank years ago. And right now, the entire narrative is on the World Economic Forum. And Smoke points out, World Economic Forum document names Ripple as a viable alternative rail to traditional payment systems. If usage of the Ripple protocol were to expand to other banks, it could be easily used for real-time payment and settlement between these institutions with no automated clearinghouse or correspondent banks required. And of course, it's documented, and you see it right here. The World Economic Forum saw XRP and RippleNet as the future a long time ago. There would be no great reset or no reset of the financial system without RippleNet or XRP, because it was built for this. It was built to fix the current financial system. And BlackRock CEO Larry Fink says global elites have lost the public's trust. Take a listen.
That the world now places far less trust in us to help shape what comes next. If the World Economic Forum is going to be useful going forward, it has to regain that trust.
Okay, so how are people supposed to trust the World Economic Forum when they laid out their master plan of depopulation and their master plan of a full surveillance system, where if you say something the wrong way, they could either just shut off your money or take away your access to the internet and so on? You know, these people don't realize that they lost the trust of the people a long time ago. It didn't happen just recently. Larry Fink lets the cat out of the bag at the World Economic Forum, Davos. Take a listen to this.
The world is going to be short power. Short power. And to power these data companies, you cannot have just this intermittent power like wind and solar. You need dispatchable power because you can't turn off and on these data centers.
Take notice, he said you can't power it up with wind or solar. Now, here's the thing. Those data centers, they're going to need extremely high amounts of power at a time where carbon credits are going to be a major thing. The World Economic Forum always said in the future, if you want to travel, you're going to need to buy carbon credits. If you want to use a gas-powered lawnmower, you'll need to buy carbon credits. If you want to drive a car, carbon credits. So what about Bitcoin mining? I still believe at some point they are going to shift all that Bitcoin mining power over to data centers to push the AI movement. And that, I believe, is coming. And the World Economic Forum is not your friend. I see people acting like this is bullish. How is this bullish? These people literally go there. They're billionaires, and they talk about ways to make your life worse. How they could build smart cities, how they could come up with all these ways to control every single thing you do. And this has to be the worst. Yuval Harari says AI will take over anything made of words, including book-based religions. Take a listen to this.
Do you know? As far as putting words in order is concerned, AI already thinks better than many of us. Therefore, anything made of words will be taken over by AI. If laws are made of words, then AI will take over the legal system. If books are just combinations of words, then AI will take over books. If religion is built from words, then AI will take over religion. This is particularly true of religions based on books, like Islam, Christianity, or Judaism. Judaism calls itself the religion of the book, and it grants...
So what he's saying is AI will create an entirely new religion, and it'll look something like this right here. Most likely, this will be what you see in the future if they have their way. And people think that this agenda somehow came to a screeching halt when we got President Trump in the White House. But what's really going on is every country outside the United States, they're already accelerating this. They're already putting laws in place for this to happen. And the Trump administration and I are here to make it very clear, globalism has failed. Take a listen to Lutnick, what he has to say here.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay? We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030...
I totally agree with what he's saying when it comes to solar and wind power and that whole going green agenda. But globalism hasn't failed. And I think what he's saying here is this. it's leaving the United States behind. The United States is not leading this globalism movement. But what globalism actually does is it allows a level playing field. It gives a world where every single country can compete. That's why banking the unbanked was so important. And I think the U.S. is going behind or lagging behind because we have lack of regulations. They can't get anything passed in Washington. Every time they try to push forward, we just keep delaying and delaying every single day. And the rest of the world is not slowing down. So I think what Lutnick is more or less saying is, hey, we're on board with this, but we want to lead this. If we can't lead this, then we don't want it at all. But the Great Reset did not really slow down. It's just that the U.S. is falling behind. The rest of the world is ready to go live with central bank digital currencies. The rest of the world is also pushing away from the U.S. dollar right now, and they want their own currency. That's why XRP was literally such an important cryptocurrency, because if every single country gets their own central bank digital currency or their own stable coin, then they have their own economy. They stay within their own power. They don't have to use US dollars anymore. And then whenever they transact with the US or the EU or any other country, their currency can go into XRP and come out as any other currency. But that's why you see Ripple pushing for globalism. Chris Larson is always talking about the globalist agenda, because the globalist agenda would sure as hell pump your XRP bags. But I think Lutnick is just telling them, listen, the U.S. is falling behind. If we're not going to lead the way on this, then we don't want any part of this. But everywhere else in the world, they're still pushing forward with this as well. That's just my thoughts on it. And I want to know your thoughts in the comment section. And like I always tell you, until it happens, stay patient, stay positive, and let's get rich together. With that said, I'm going to wrap up this video. I want to thank you all for watching. I appreciate all of you. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great night.